Hi, everyone. It's Joe Veneri, the host of Fitt Insider, the show where I talk with the entrepreneurs, executives, and investors who are redefining the business of fitness and wellness. Today, I'm joined by Marc Maurer, co-CEO of On, a Swiss-engineered performance footwear and apparel company. In this episode, we discuss the company's recent IPO, including growth opportunities in the retail and direct-to-consumer channels. Marc explains how On combines performance, design, and sustainability to stand out in a crowded market. And he shares the company's mission to ignite the human spirit through movement. Before today's episode, I wanted to share some updates to the Fitt Insider platform. As you might know, in addition to this podcast, we send a weekly newsletter to help operators stay informed and make better decisions. We also launched an industry-specific jobs board filled with hundreds of openings at top companies, and we're actively investing in early-stage health and fitness startups. To see what's new or to get in touch, visit insider.fit.co. Hi, Marc. Welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Joe. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, and we were chatting just before we started here on your holiday, making time for us and the listeners. So we're very grateful about that. Thanks again for making some time and being willing to share some insights today.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here in the Swiss mountains, and as you know, at On, it's all about being outside and connecting to the nature and moving. So it's very nice to be speaking to you and talking to you from this beautiful place.
Yeah, very fitting. I think we'll certainly touch on that inspiration both behind the company and how it's infused into the design. But for folks who aren't familiar, I know you've been with the company for quite a while. On recently made its public appearance on listing on the markets and the IPO. But just give us a quick background both about yourself and On.
Yeah, so I'm the co-CEO of On. I've been with On. On exists for 11 years, by now almost 12 years. And I'm with the company for 10 years almost. We started out of Switzerland with a very simple idea to make running fun. And we came up with an innovation which we call Cloud Tech. Basically, that helps you to have a much more efficient and more protected stride while you're running. So you have a soft landing and a firm push-off. And that then took us internationally over the last years. We're present in over 50 countries. We're really a true sports company right now that comes from running to outdoor to performance all day. We do footwear, we do apparel, all with the goal basically to make people move and to inspire the human spirit through movement.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of pieces there that the brand itself feels very authentic. There's a kind of grassroots feel to it. And I think that comes through in the elements of design. You talk about making movement and activity and running fun, ensuring that the kind of comfort is there when it comes to both the footwear and apparel. How do you leverage these things to help On stand out from what is a kind of crowded landscape when it comes to activewear and footwear in general?
Yes, I think On is an innovation company at heart. So from the very beginning, it was all about bringing innovation to consumers. And it was all about understanding what consumers want and what allows them to have a better feeling. And this is what's driving us. And this is what will continue to drive us. And, in what areas is this innovation coming to life? One is performance, right? So that performance could be that it can run faster, but it could also mean that your product is more comfortable, or it could mean that it protects you from getting injured, right? So I think that's a very, very important area. Then we already spoke about it, the inspiration that we take from Switzerland when it comes to our design, which is very approachable and which really allows us, to basically create products that you can wear all day and every day for many different use cases. And then very, very important, sustainability is a key topic for us, and I'm sure we're going to touch on that later on as well. And so we're going to make sure that On has the potential to eventually become a circular company, and we want to create that impact beyond just On, but we want to have an impact on the industry overall.
Yeah, I think that's a good kind of place to pivot and look at the sustainability. There's so much. In some ways, it's become a buzzword. In other ways, it's become kind of table stakes for brands in terms of appealing to what is a younger, more eco-conscious, values-driven consumer. And whether that's, footwear and apparel, but really any brand across the board. But we're seeing it more, I think, as it relates to this kind of active wear. In On's case, as you mentioned, sustainability is kind of central to the brand and the company. So much so that there was even this recyclable shoe subscription, this model where people can trade that shoe in, and you're working towards really eliminating emissions as it relates to that. How do you think about, that initiative around the shoe subscription itself and these broader sustainability kind of pillars and core values such that you're able to have an impact and it goes beyond that kind of press or headline with the different launches or, just prioritizing it in general?
Yeah, so let's start with Cyclone probably, which is, it's actually not just recyclable, it's circular, right? Which means we can use the ingredients of the product again to create new products. And what we had to do for that is we had to basically close the back loop. So, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to have something circular if it doesn't come back to us. And that's why we came up with the subscription model. And that's why we also came up with designing a supply chain that allows us to take all the products back, then, put it back, so to say, in its raw materials, and then create new products out of it again. And in the end, what we're doing with Cyclone is actually, it's an experiment at the large scale. So we're having over 10,000 subscribers right now. We're hoping that we can continue to grow that. We're convinced we can continue to grow that. And we'll see where that takes us. And if this is something that consumers appreciate and that, can have an impact, then we'll definitely bring that to other products and make it a much, much broader topic than what it is now. But right now, give us some time to run that experiment together with our consumers. On the product side, what we for sure will continue to do is go and push very, very hard to become a circular company. And maybe there's other ways to do that than with a subscription model. But what is very important there, that it all starts with the product and the raw materials itself, right? So how can we use more circular or more recyclable raw materials? How can we move the industry away from fossil fuels? And, I think there's a lot of things that are going on there. Cyclone is one example. We also committed to science-based targets. And basically by 2024, 100% of our polyester will be recycled, and of our polyamide, and 100% will be organic cotton. So we have very, very strong targets that we set for ourselves. And we hope that we can have a lead role here in the industry, and that everyone else will follow.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important. And it's, as you frame it, you're also figuring it out, right? Give us some time to see the ways in which we can do this that both work from a business standpoint, and also serve the planet and consumers. So it is a process to get there. And doing that, beyond being able to achieve those objectives for the company and for, the planet, how do you position it to customers? Is it important to them such that it requires this education in terms of what this subscription is, what these different processes are in order to produce this? Or is it just a matter of, hey, we need to get this to market because we want to do this for the company and our values? And if we do that, then the consumers will follow.
Yes, with Cyclone, definitely it's basically, we're asking some of our biggest fans that are committed to have an impact when it comes to being more circular, to be part of this experiment, right? And we need them to be part of it because eventually we need to produce more than 10,000 pairs. We need to be able to produce 100,000 millions of products to bring that to a large scale. And for that, we need consumers to be able, to do that together with us. And I think for us, it's in the end, we want to be transparent and vulnerable about what we're doing. So if you go on our website, you basically can see, where's the product produced. You can see what content is in the product. We're very open about, kind of what is organic and so on, what is recycled content and so on. And definitely we want to continue to go that journey together with our consumers. And we also see that there's an increased awareness around that topic. And, in the end, it's about, kind of making sure that the beautiful place that we're living in, that we pass it on to our children. And it needs all of us. It needs the brands, it needs the companies, but it also needs consumers to do that.
Yeah, it's gonna take buy-in kind of across the board, and I think part of that, making it incredibly, the products themselves appealing from the design perspective, and also with the comfort, all the elements that we talk about, merging that has a good chance of making that impact. When you think about the company in terms of footwear, in terms of apparel, and how that breaks out across revenue. Right now, even all the success that the company has seen, kind of tremendous sales, especially through a direct-to-consumer channels, it's still a relatively small one in the overall footwear market, right? And now with the apparel coming on, how do you think about growing those, but also ideally where you want them to be in terms of percentage of revenue? How big do you think the apparel business will be in relation to the footwear business, and just continuing to grow both of those overall?
I mean, apparel today is growing stronger than footwear. So that's very, very positive, and we expect it to continue to grow stronger. Now, the share obviously depends then also on how fast footwear is growing, and luckily footwear is still growing very, very fast. So this is why it takes a bit of time for apparel to gain, much, much more share. If you look at some of our stores in China, apparel is 25% of sales. So I think this gives you a little bit an idea for if you're able to showcase apparel in the right way, for where we can basically get apparel to. And that's probably a number that at some point in time we would like to see, and we consider a healthy mix. We will continue to invest in the team. We'll continue to invest in channels. I mean, let's not forget that we're only 5-6 years into apparel now. We're into footwear for much, much longer. So we're still scaling up that. We're still adding lots of new partners that can bring apparel to life together with us. And in the end, it's the same recipe, right? So our apparel is about performance, it's about design, and it's about the sustainability. So we're bringing the same thing that made us successful in footwear to apparel, and we're not compromising on it. And I think that's, when we spoke about sustainability before, often, you see something that's either performant or sustainable, and at On, it's both. So we're never compromising, and we're very, very kind of optimistic that this will allow us to grow, to significantly grow the apparel share.
Yeah, it sounds like that equation, performance, design, and sustainability, pretty nailed down as you think about continuing to expand. In that growth, obviously one of the kind of vectors is not only global expansion, but brick and mortar. You mentioned China there, that the apparel is growing. Looking at the F1 filing, I thought it was interesting that there's kind of 4, and maybe it's more now, so you can kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, but 4 locations in China, this being a kind of pillar of the brick and mortar strategy. How do you think about those dynamics and opportunities in China versus Europe and the United States? And, maybe even why was that specifically called out in that filing?
So it was 4, it's now already 8. So I think that speaks to the speed in which we're growing China. I mean, we very much, China eventually should become the second largest or largest market for On. It's a very, very important market for us. We're present in over 50 countries globally, and the US and China are the largest footwear and running markets. So it's very clear that we want to be able to bring our products to consumers in China in the same way as we're doing it in other countries. Because again, in the end, it's about how can we ignite the human spirit through movement, and that is completely independent of whether you're living in China, in Australia, in Vietnam, or in the US. Now, what we're seeing in China, it's a very different market in terms of the channel that's there. So like the run specialty channel, some of the department stores, that's just not there. So you basically have to build it out completely on your own. And that's why we're significantly investing in own retail stores in China. And you'll see the vast majority of On stores to be happening in China. And at the same time, we're basically heavily investing with the digital players like Tmall and JD, and we're scaling that. And that has led to growth rates of over 300%. We're very happy with how consumers have adopted On in China. I think many Chinese consumers actually see On as a Chinese brand with a Swiss heart. And we're very, very happy about that. And we feel, probably not over the next 2 to 3 years. It's still going to be in absolute numbers relatively or a little bit smaller than some of the other markets. But beyond that, it will be a key growth driver for On. And that's also why we specifically mentioned it in the F1.
Yeah, very interesting to kind of track that growth and potential. Kind of on the brick and mortar front, when you think about the stores, I thought it was really interesting. I followed the launch of the Flagship Store here in the States that was kind of built around this experiential shopping, personalization, technology. What was the motivation around that, and how do you see it impacting the brand? Is this something you want to bring to many more locations, or this kind of, it being the flagship, the focus there, kind of how are you thinking about rolling that concept out?
We're trying to give basically where consumers interact with On, be it online, be it with our retail partners or in our flagship stores, they should have an experience that goes above and beyond. And that's what we're trying to do. So we'll definitely bring some of the elements to our retail partners as well. For example, in some shop-in-shop executions that we're doing with Nordstrom, but also we just did a very nice one with Harrods in London. At the same time, we will continue to roll out that concept. So we'll bring it to more locations in the US. We'll bring it to some of the key cities in the world. And the motivation really was, we looked at a lot of stores. And what struck us was basically that, whenever you wanted to fit a shoe, the person who was basically fitting you had to go down to the basement to get the right shoe and come back. And you didn't have that very seamless experience. So we were like, okay, how can we have technology help doing that? And how can we have a very, very differentiated experience? And this is why we basically created the run analysis that you can see, where you basically run in front of a big screen and it will tell you what kind of runner you are. And then you go behind the wall and all the products and all the sizes are directly available. So no one has to go down to the basement to fit you. You try your size and then, you check out. So the store has been a tremendous success for us. It's great to have lines in front of the store. In hindsight, we should probably have made it a little bit bigger. But the consumers have really adopted the concept that, again, brings a very unique design element. It brings technology, but it's rooted in running and it's rooted in movement to New York. And so we're definitely planning in rolling that out.
Yeah, I would encourage anyone who hasn't seen it, maybe Google. I think it's called the Magic Wall. A lot of really interesting technology is going into it. I think the experience, to your point, is much different than waiting for someone to bring shoes out and what is not a great overall experience. So it's worth checking out.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah. To this point, we've kind of talked about the brick and mortar, that experience, expanding in China, but also this experiential concept. One of the other elements at On is this, I mentioned grassroots earlier, but also, selling through specialty retailers, doing local events that makes it feel like and not using this term, almost derogatory in that it's niche, but authentic. It feels, small and that you can engage with it. It's accessible. But as you expand now globally, continue to press forward as a public company, how do you think about maintaining that authenticity while pushing forward in a way where, you could risk losing that relationship or accessibility maybe with consumers?
Look, I think the authenticity started to a certain extent when Olivier, as the first person who founded the company, founded it basically because he was an athlete, right? And he wanted better products to run. And I think very early on really started as a grassroots brand. It was people recommending to their friends, which in the end also led now to a net promoter score that is at 66, which is the highest by far in the industry, and which shows a little bit how On is appreciated and how that grassroots movement also really, really works, and how a lot of the local community activations that we're doing are being appreciated by our fans. And when you look at how, for example, we work with Roger Federer, then I think this should give you some confidence that we will keep that authenticity, because we didn't pay him a lot of money to eventually become an ambassador. No, we asked him, hey, put your money where your foot basically is.
Right.
And he invested with us, right? And now he spends days and weeks with us in the development team, developing his own range. And when we look at how we will continue to work with athletes, how we'll continue to bring the brand to life, then you can be sure we're going to do that in a very, very authentic way, because this is what we are. And in the end, we started as a running brand, and it's core to who we are. And we will continue to move to other areas and bring On's products to life rooted in running. And so I think That's a very, very important element. And, in the end, if you look at currently the brands that are winning and the brands that are being, appreciated by consumer, then usually it's very, very authentic brands.
Yeah, I think the partnership with Roger Federer was very interesting in that he was bought in and worked to develop this kind of tennis shoe. But to that point, there's, the company starting rooted in running, this being a tennis shoe, so that's expanding a little bit more into, sports specific footwear. Is the thought to be kind of opportunistic and open to these other sectors when you look at partners and expansion opportunities, or was that maybe a one-off that, he happened to be the guy and obviously tennis made sense versus you saying, hey, we're going to pursue, obviously a basketball shoe, a soccer cleat, whatever it might be. How do you think about both those athlete partnerships, ambassador partnerships, and as it relates to other categories potentially expanding beyond what is primarily running and outdoors?
We started in running, and then at some point when we launched the Cloud back in 2014, which was actually a shoe that we developed for Nicolas Spirik, who eventually became second in the Rio Olympics. And with that product, but then suddenly people started to wear it all day and every day. Where in the beginning we were like, no, don't do that. But then we realized, hey, it's very light, it's comfortable, so this is great, and maybe this is a way to bring performance into the lifestyle space, which we now call performance all day, right? So we went from running into lifestyle, and we went into outdoor, which is very natural because we're born in the Swiss Alps, and I think we know a thing or two about the outdoors. So. And with running and with lifestyle or performance all day, we are in the two by far biggest segments, right? So there's absolutely, from a market opportunity perspective, there's absolutely no need to go into other segments. Now, we like challenges, and we wanted Roger to be able to continue to be successful. So he asked us to do a tennis shoe. So we did a tennis shoe. And we were very proud when he was able to play in it, and when he played for it in the first time in Doha. And we'll see where this takes us. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to have a lot of opportunities, and for us, it's about making sure that we're being authentic and we're picking the right opportunities. And who knows where this takes us.
Yeah, keeping the door open, it certainly, makes sense to do so and see, as you put it, where it takes you with these different partners and sectors as you expand. We've talked about sustainability. We've talked about the different channels of growth. We've also talked about potential competitors in the landscape and different approaches that folks are taking. One of them that comes up quite a bit now is the relationship with consumers beyond just the shopping experience, right? You see different people, maybe a Nike has this suite of apps, the running app, the training app, Lululemon, obviously purchasing Mirror to be in this connected fitness game and at-home workouts. How do you think about engaging with the consumer beyond that shopping experience? And is technology, obviously technology is a part of that, but when it comes to apps or connected equipment, how do you think about maintaining that relationship in the long term?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, I think we have a very unique opportunity that we know a lot of our consumers, because we have a relatively high direct to consumer share. So they purchase on our own website, they purchase in our store. So we actually have that relationship. I think the key to long-term success will continue to be amazing products, right? If you have an amazing connectivity with your consumer, but you don't have amazing products, then that probably doesn't help. At the same time, we have a lot of opportunity to be more connected to our consumers. I feel we're doing it very, very well when it comes to physical activation. So we spoke about the grassroots movement. We do tons of runs. We invented a lot of grassroots concepts that we're bringing to life. So for example, we invented an art run where people kind of are running together with artists, they're painting and so on. But there is definitely a digital opportunity. And you can be sure that we're working on that digital opportunity, and we're significantly investing in it.
A little tease there. We'll have to, kind of stay tuned to see how that all takes shape in the digital realm and the opportunities there, right?
Yes, exactly. So I think it's a very fast changing environment that offers lots of new technologies also very, very quickly. And again, I think for us, it's about what's the value we can bring to a consumer. Right, so you gotta have a certain value, and it's got to be authentic. And I think we're trying to do it our own way. And we're very, very fortunate that we have a very loyal consumer base that really appreciates On and that feels very connected to us. So definitely we want to bring them an experience that goes beyond just the product itself.
Yeah. As we get towards the end of the conversation, we've talked about quite a bit here. I wanted to look ahead, thinking about making this transition from the private to public markets and establishing what then is important for benchmarks and prioritizing, now having to come out right on a quarterly basis and report this progress in earnings. How do you think about where are you planting the flag as it relates to maybe the end of this year and getting into 2022, saying these are the things as a company that we're focusing on that will continue to stress both, externally, maybe in those earnings reports, and also internally as you plot that course of progress going forward?
Let me start that with the big picture again, right? So again, we're a purpose-driven company and we're about igniting the human spirit through movement. So we will hold ourselves accountable by making sure we're doing that across the globe. So how can we bring On's products and the experience we're providing to even more consumers in the 50 countries that we're currently present, but beyond that? And how can we do that in a very, very authentic way? Basically bringing, the right product to the consumers that feel attracted by On through the right channels. So it's not about just growth, right? It's about sustainable growth and how are we having a lasting impact? And this is ultimately what we're looking at. And luckily, because we also control the company with B shares, basically we have a very, very long-term perspective that we can continue to bring to life. And then clearly there is the stock market, and we are very, very happy to be part of that. And it's clear that we have financial measures that go into it, and we'll make sure that we're setting ourselves the right target, which are very, very strong growth targets that we also communicated with all the analysts. We have gross margin targets that are quite aspirational. We have bottom line targets that we communicated. And if we do an amazing job in making sure we're ultimately reaching our purpose, then I have absolutely no questions that will also hit the financial targets. But the financial targets are not a goal in itself. They're basically an outcome of doing amazing work. And I think this is what we're focusing on together with the team. And then you have, if you look at happiness of our retail partners and fans and how we're measuring that through Net Promoter Score and so on, I think these are often even more meaningful metrics that speak to how we're doing as a brand.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good a place as any to wrap things up, kind of coming full circle to this performance, design, sustainability. Yeah, I think I've heard you say maybe a couple of times, igniting the human spirit through movement. Those things are obviously resonating. I think they'll certainly resonate with listeners here today. For folks who aren't familiar and maybe want to learn more, what's the best way to connect with On, and where would you point them?
Yeah, go on on-running.com, follow our Instagram channels, our YouTube channel. We have thousands of retail partners out there, so please visit the store that's closest to you. You can also find the store locator on on-running.com. And then please get in contact with a physical product. In the very beginning, we actually had T-shirts that would say, when someone asked us about the shoes, and we had T-shirts and they would say, we let the shoes do the talking. And I feel actually stepping into the product goes way beyond than just a couple of words. So I can only encourage everyone to, hopefully take that conversation as a spark to try out our apparel or our footwear kind of at whatever location is closest to you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I definitely encourage folks to do that. And once again, very grateful that you made some time for us today and excited to share this conversation with listeners.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe, and having On. Really appreciate it. And it was great chatting to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to today's episode. For more from Fitt Insider, visit insider.fit.co and subscribe to our weekly newsletter for insights and analysis on the business of fitness and wellness. Then, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. See you next time.